Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's video lecture, and we continue covering the muscular system. So please watch the first video lecture. In that video lecture, I covered the beginning of this PowerPoint. So I'm going to start today right where I left last time. And we cover most of the muscles. We cover muscles of the head and neck and torso and back and abdominal region and even upper limb, your arm and forearm and hand. So today we just need to cover muscles of lower limb. So let's go ahead and begin. So gluteal region, you have muscles, superficial and deep muscles in your gluteal region. On this diagram, on the left, because this is posterior view, so this is the left of this mannequin and this is right. So on the left, we see superficial muscles. On the right, we see deep muscles. Now, you need to know really just three muscles shown over here. And those muscles are gluteus maximus. Maximus means big muscle. Gluteus medius, superior to gluteus maximus, and it's a medium size. And deep to these two muscles, we have gluteus minimus, right? Now, gluteus maximus extends the thigh and also laterally rotates. Medius and minimus, they are abductors. So that means they take your hip joint away from midline of your body. Gluteus medius also medially rotates your thigh, and the same as gluteus minimus. Right, so we have extensor of hip joint, and we have abductor of hip joints. And plus, they rotate your thigh. Now, tensor fascia lata is not shown on this diagram, so I'm gonna just go to this slide. And this muscle over here is tensor fascia lata. It's a pretty small belly, and it has a tendon. Then this tendon inserts into iliotibial band over here. Right, so that's our tensor fascia lata. Now, on this diagram, we are looking at a human pelvis, and this is superior view, and we have outlet of the pelvis. In this outlet, we will find what we muscles, and we call these muscles pelvic floor. Because it's outlet, so there is an opening over here, right? We do not want this opening to exist because we have our pelvic organs, and you don't want your pelvic organs to fall down when you're walking, right? And at the same time, we don't want a bony structure over here because you need some, movement, and you need to have your anal canal and vagina if you're female, and urethra passing through this area, right? So the bony covering would not work. And good, we have some muscles that close up this outlet, right? Now we have several muscles that make pelvic floor. However, we're just gonna divide them into three groups, and we will remember them just by these three groups. So the first group of muscle shown right here, right? And this is pelvic diaphragm. Oh, I'm sorry, and including this one as well, right? So that's all pelvic diaphragm. Now, this group of muscles over here, medial to pelvic diaphragm, is urogenital diaphragm. So we have pelvic diaphragm, urogenital diaphragm, and one more muscle over here, piriformis. So that's this muscle right there. So one muscle, piriformis, and two groups of muscles, pelvic diaphragm and urogenital diaphragm. You can look at piriformis. If we go back to this slide, you can see a piriformis muscle right there. So that's our piriformis muscle. So it's a deep to gluteus maximus. Now we're moving to the thigh. Thigh is divided into compartments, or muscles of thigh are divided into 3 compartments. We have anterior compartment, posterior and medial compartment. Now on this picture, we have muscles of anterior compartment highlighted, right? We have, all these different colors here. Now these 4 muscles, rectus femoris, vastus medialis, lateralis, and intermedius, make a group of muscles that is called quadriceps. So we have quadriceps femoris, but it's not one muscle, it's actually a group of 4 muscles. And then we have sartorius. Sartorius shown over here in the purple color, right? So that's a sartorius. So the yellow muscle over here is the rectus femoris. On the lateral side, we have vastus lateralis, shown here in blue. On the medial side, shown here in brown, is vastus medialis. And then, I guess it's supposed to be red, right? But this is vastus medialis, and vastus intermedius is deep muscle. So you need to remove rectus femoris to be able to see vastus intermedius. Okay, now if we move, what would be the major function of this group? As they extend your knee. It's a major function. And then of course, like a sartorius also rotates your hip joint because they go across a hip joint, right? But as a major function is to extend the knee. Now, if we move to the medial compartment, the major function of those muscles is adduct the thigh. Adduct, you bring it close to midline. So those are adductors. And we have over here pectineus that is actually on this picture. So here's our pectineus muscle right there. Right. And then this is our, this muscles are our medial compartment. So we have pectineus and then our adductors. This shown in yellow is adductor longus, shown in green, adductor brevis, and a large muscle over here in kind of reddish color is adductor magnus. And of course, gracilis, and again, gracilis is not shown over here. But yeah, it's shown right there. So here's the gracilis. So it would be a gracilis muscles over here, right? But it's shown here in yellow color, gracilis muscle. I like this picture because you can see important structure also located in this area. We have femoral nerve, we have femoral artery, and we have obturator nerve, right? So adductor longus here is cut. Right, adductor brevis, adductor magnus cannot be seen, but you can see gracilis. Those are, deeper muscles, and especially adductor magnus. It's a large muscle. You can see a part of it shown right here. All right. Superior to these muscles, we have obturator externus. That is not on our list. I just, think it's worth to mention it. Okay. Now we're moving to posterior compartment, and those are flexors of the knee. And when you look at posterior compartment over here, now this is your, okay. So we have this side and this side, right? So this is your lateral and this is your medial side, right? So it give you some orientation. Now on the medial side, you have two muscles. You have semimembranosus shown here in yellow, right? So this part over here and this. And to remember that semimembranosus on the medial side, you look at, like this M, semimembranosus. So it's on the medial side. And on the top of semimembranosus, we have semitendinosus. And if you look at this letter T, right, that should help you to remember that it's on top. Yeah, this horrible how I highlighted this letter. So let me just get rid of all this stuff. Right, so again, so we have semimembranosus and we have semitendinosus. So those letters should help you to remember that membranosus, semimembranosus is on the medial side and semitendinosus is on top of membranosus. Then we have one more muscle over here that is biceps femoris. And it has two heads. That's why we call it biceps. We have a long head shown here in brown and a short head shown here in purple. Now biceps femoris, that is lateral, semitendinosus on top and semimembranosus medial make a group of muscles that we call hamstrings. And you can see also very important structure over here, such as sciatic nerve, right? So sciatic nerve is found under the gluteus maximus, right? And it's kind of passes underneath the bicep femoris. And when sciatic nerve comes to the popliteal region, it splits into tibial and common fibular nerve. And this nerve innervate your lower limb, right? The same as we look over here, obturator nerve innervates your lower limb and femoral nerve innervates your lower limb. Okay, so here we can see quadriceps and hamstrings, right? So quadriceps kind of shown here in blue color. Now, what's shown here in yellow are not hamstrings. It just, unfortunately, color is the same as hamstrings. This is our adductor group. They adduct, so they bring your hip joint towards, and as a result, your whole lower limb towards the midline. And on the back, posteriorly, we have our hamstrings group. Right, okay, and you can also see the gluteus maximus over here and a little bit of gluteus medius. Now, muscles of the leg. Now, remember, we divided thigh into anterior, posterior, and medial compartment. A leg is divided into anterior, posterior, and a lateral compartment. So we're looking at anterior compartment that the main job of these muscles are dorsiflexion of the foot and extension of toes. So the pretty much toes and foot goes, this direction. We call it dorsiflexion, and we extend toes. Now, shown here in green is tibialis anterior. Now, this bone is tibia bone. That's why we have tibialis anterior, and we're moving to the lateral side from tibialis anterior. Next muscle, purple over here, extensor hallucis longus and extensor digitorum longus. Extensor tells you it's going to extend, and it's going to extend big toe. Hallucis is big toe. Extensor digitorum, you can see that tendons go to digits 2 through 5. So it's going to extend those digits, right? This digits 2 through 5, and for hallucis, we have its own extensor muscle, right? Now, lateral compartment, we have fibularis longus and fibularis brevis that evert and plantar flex the ankle, So over here, show you this is where our little toe is. So it's a lateral side. So that's a lateral compartment. In the posterior compartment, we have several layers of muscles. So we have superficial and we have deep. Now, posterior compartment for plantar flexion and superficial muscle include plantaris. So plantaris is this muscle shown here in purple, right? It has a small belly and very long tendon. So you can see it's called plantaris. And if you think, you know, your plantar is your sole over here, right? So how the plantaris is actually in the popliteal region, but that because the tendon goes all the way down to the plantar region. It's called freshman's nerve. So students, freshmen, medical students very often confuse this tendon with the nerve. So that's a small muscle plantaris. Then we have gastrocnemius. So this big muscle shown here in green is gastrocnemius. And on this picture, gastrocnemius is in yellow. And if you cut it off, you can see muscle deep to gastrocnemius, that is soleus. Now, soleus and gastrocnemius has the same insertion, and they have common tendon. It's called calcaneal tendon or Achilles tendon. And insertion is calcaneal bone or your heel bone, calcaneus. All right, so that was our superficial. So here our deep. So it's also for flexion. And we have popliteus, you know, named by the region. So popliteal region, popliteal muscle. We have popliteal artery over here. And then we have tibialis posterior. So remember on front over here in anterior compartment, we have tibialis anterior. So on back, we will have tibialis posterior. Now, over here, my big toe. So that's the medial side. And, you know, where you have your medial side, you actually has a muscle that is flexor digitorum longus. And lateral from tibialis anterior, you have flexor hallucis longus. So now look at these muscles. Tibialis posterior, and we have tibialis anterior. Now look what we have over here. Extensors, two extensors. Extensor digitorum longus extends digits, right? And extensor hallucis. Now over here, we will have flexors. Flexor digitorum longus and flexor hallucis longus. So, so muscles in anterior and posterior compartment have similar name, right? But if they flex, we call them flexors. And flexors are in posterior compartment. If they extend, we call them extensors, right? So, and when we move to a foot, we're gonna just remember that we have dorsal group, and in dorsal group we have extensor digitorum brevis. Remember, in anterior compartment we have extensor digitorum longus, and this green muscle over here is extensor digitorum brevis. Now, in plantar group, we have 4 layers of muscles. They are flexors and abductors. So you can see, you know, muscles shown over here that we are not going into detail. We're just gonna say dorsal group and plantar group. And in the dorsal group, because it's, you know, one muscle here, we can just remember it's extensor digitorum brevis. And intrinsic muscles of the foot, they help flex, extend, abduct, adduct toes, and support arches of foot. And some leg tendons, you know, assist to some leg tendons, I guess, right? So like these tendons, it's a tendons of the flexor digitorum longus, because that's, this is not, this is plantar. That's a plantar. Okay, so we covered the muscles, right? Now we didn't go into details because studying muscles on pictures is not the best way to memorize them and remember them. That's why good for us, we have our lab, right? When we will look at our own body, right? We will find those muscles on our arms and legs, and we will move our arm and legs, and we will see what muscles are involved in those different movements. All right, and then you can always go back to this PowerPoint, this video lecture, and review everything. Some things that we cover in lab, some things that we cover in lecture, so everything will make sense. But before we finish up with this chapter, I want to look at nerves. We will cover nerves, right? So we need to know it anyway. But why nerves are so important? Because your skeletal muscles cannot contract without innervation from your somatic nervous system. So those nerves carry on signals that activate your muscles and make your muscles contract. And different muscles are innervated by different nerves, right? So we're only gonna look at arm over here and leg. Now in the arm, you have 4 major major nerves that you need to know. Now in the posterior part of arm, we have radial nerve. And in anterior, we have, let's see, so this bone is a radius, right? So you see how a radial nerve kind of follow your radius on the posterior side. It's shown here in green. Now this, where your little finger is, you have ulna bone and you have ulnar nerve. Right between them, you have median nerve, right? So so that's a radial, right? So that's a radial nerve. Okay, so here's a radial nerve. Here's our ulnar nerve, right? Right there. In the middle, between them, we have median nerve, right there, right? And we have one more nerve over here that you need to know. Muscular cutaneous is this nerve over here in the brachial region. I wish they called this nerve brachial nerve, but they call it muscular cutaneous. Let me get rid of my awesome drawings, right? So radial, ulnar, median, muscular cutaneous. This is anterior compartment of lower limb, and the last picture is posterior compartment. So here we need to know 2 nerves, femoral nerve and obturator nerve. And femoral nerve is actually just this part. And then this big one, you would think it's femoral, but it's a saphenous nerve. So that's our femoral, this is obturator. And in the posterior compartment, we have what we call sciatic nerve. And sciatic nerve, when it approaches a popliteal region, it splits into tibial and common fibula. So here's a common fibula, and this one is tibial. And common fibular then divided into superficial fibular and deep fibular nerves, right? So again, let's look here. So femoral obturator, and it's obturator because remember this hole over here is called obturator foramen, right? So, well, this is obturator nerve, and this foramen is called obturator foramen. It's foramen where this nerve passing through, right? So femoral, and this is our femoral region. So we have femoral nerve in the femoral region. We have obturator nerve that passing through obturator foramen. We have sciatic nerve, and then we have tibia bone. So we have tibial nerve, we have fibula bone, we have common fibular, and then superficial and deep fibular nerves. Now on next pictures, we can see what those nerves, what muscles those nerves innervate. Now, all these nerves, they have a motor branch and sensory branch. So sensory branch bring, a sensory information from different part of your body to your brain. So we will not cover the sensory nerve. We're only looking at motor nerve, right? So radial nerve. So let's look, where's this radial? So that's this posterior nerve over here, shown in green. Now radial nerve innervates actually posterior compartment of arm and forearm. So you have tricep brachii on the back, right, of your arm. That's posterior compartment, and posterior compartment of forearm. So pretty much all your posterior compartment are innervated by radial nerve. All right, then we have muscular cutaneous. This one innervates, look, there's three muscles, biceps brachii, brachialis, coracobrachialis. So those are anterior compartment of arm, muscular cutaneous. Right, then medial nerve gonna innervate most of the muscles of the anterior compartment of the arm, right? I'm sorry, forearm, because anterior compartment of the arm, we have muscular cutaneous. Anterior compartment of forearm is median nerve, and ulnar nerve is mostly gonna innervate muscles of your hand. Right, so you can read, of course, if you bright students, you can just remember all these muscles that are innervated, but there is no need. We just say in general what those muscles nerve innervate. And then we're moving to low limb. So femoral nerve, and again, we have sensory and motor, so we are not looking at sensory, we're only looking at motor branches. So femoral nerve mostly gonna innervate what? Anterior compartment of thigh. So here's our thigh, and that's many muscles in the thigh will be innervated by femoral nerve. Obturator nerve gonna innervate mostly medial compartment. You can see all these adductors, pectineus, so those muscles in the medial compartment, because it passes through obturator foramen, it's on the medial side. This is on anterior part of the thigh, right? But look, femoral nerve is not innervating your leg, right? Now, muscles of your leg. And again, we are not talking about sensory, we're talking about motor. Now, what innervates in your leg? So here's our tibial nerve, right? So tibial nerve gonna innervate posterior compartment of your leg, right? So tibial innervate posterior compartment of your leg. You can see gastrocnemius, tibialis posterior, biceps femoris. Well, biceps femoris is on the thigh. It's partially, but here are extensors. Flexor, gastrocnemius, plantaris, popliteus, tibialis posterior. So tibial nerve innervates posterior compartment of leg, right? What innervates posterior compartment of thigh? Well, you need to go back. Posterior compartment, and by the way, I'm sorry, tibial nerve innervates both posterior compartment of the thigh and leg, right? Well, they call it sciatic nerve, but okay, sciatic nerve is made of two nerves, tibial and fibular, common fibular nerve, really. So yeah, this book tells us that's a sciatic nerve innervate, but it's a tibial nerve that innervate posterior compartment of thigh and leg. And then we have our fibular nerve. Here they call it peroneal. Peroneal nerve is the same as fibular nerve. So remember, where this sciatic nerve reaches your popliteal region, it's gonna split into tibial, and tibial goes all the way down, innervating all these muscles of the inferior leg, and common fibula. And then fibula is divided into superficial and deep. Now, superficial fibula gonna innervate lateral compartment of leg, and deep fibula gonna move to the front and innervate anterior compartment of the leg. Okay, so let's just just make one more review. So let's look over here. Let me get rid of my drawings. So you see, this is our femoral nerve, right? Now, femoral nerve makes sense if femoral nerve innervate anterior compartment of the thigh, right? Just makes sense because it's right there. Now, obturator nerve, what do you think obturator would innervate? Well, it innervate this medial compartment, right? Now, when we look on the posterior side, so here's our sciatic nerve, that actually two nerves together. And in some books, you will read that it's a tibial nerve that innervates this posterior thigh, or, maybe sciatic in other books. But here our posterior thigh, right? And it's innervated by sciatic, or you can say tibial. That's correct. And then posterior part of your leg, posterior part of the leg, right there, right? Innervated by tibial nerve. Now lateral part, innervated by superficial fibular, and deep fibular gonna actually move to the front, and it's gonna innervate muscles of the anterior compartment, deep fibular, right there. Anterior compartment of the leg, right? And again, do not confuse those motor branches with sensory branches, because sensory innervation is completely different, right? And it's really, well, not completely, but it has lots of differences here. And we are not learning sensory innervation, right? We are interested right now in the motor innervation that allow your muscles to contract and move, right? Move your body parts. Okay, so I think that's it for this chapter. Thank you for watching, and I hope it was helpful.